Bet horse racing on DRF Bets. We'll match your first deposit up to $250. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back, all from Daily Racing Form, the most trusted name in horse racing. Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Thursday, May the 13th, race number 8 at Belmont Park. Let's take a look at this field. It is for New York breds, two other than optional claiming event. You can download free formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Access them and handicap along with us. Second start is a 3-year-old for the 8 Step Dancer, a stakes winner last year, Mike. Getting Lasix for the first time for Barclay Tag. Looks like a good spot for Step Dancer.
Yeah, he's going to have to take on older horses for the first time here, but maybe it is a good spot, Dan. It's the first time they're back to, his available condition with him after 3 straight stake starts, and he was a stakes winner last year as a 2-year-old.
Taking a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race, there are no true blazers in here, and that might help the 7. El Hermano, getting back to turf for the first time in several years. This horse needs a little bit of a wake-up on form, but he does have tactical speed. I think he should go right to the top.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if he can still run at all, that's where you'll see him on the front end, and then we'll just see what he does. And there's a real question about whether this horse has anything left in the tank at all. If he does, he was once a pretty good horse, and we'll see how fast the other horses go. There's a lot going on in this race because not only do you have him, but you have a bunch of horses or a couple of horses who have never run on turf before, and they're going to try it here.
Another horse with some back class is the 1, Dr. Shane. This horse was a stakes winner against New York breds way back as a 2-year-old, and he was in against some open 2Xs back in 2019. Now, last year, he ran at this level, and he sort of was found wanting, but that was sprinting. Let's go back to his last race at Gulfstream against open $16,000 claimers. I thought he had a very good trip. In behind the leader, eased out, makes the front, and he's going to get pipped on the line. No real excuses here for Dr. Shane.
No, he had every chance to win this race. He wasn't quite good enough. Danny Gargan's run him his last 3 starts for 16,000 down at Gulfstream. He's run fine in all 3 of those races, but he had perfect trips in all 3 of those races too, and he only won 1 of them. That bothers me a little bit. He's the kind of horse who I always felt like was a little better going shorter than he is going longer. But I tell you what, he's a very tactical horse. He could fall into a real good trip here.
Our next 2 horses are trying turf for the first time, as Mike alluded to in the open. The 2 Cold Hard Cash is trained by Linda Rice. This is a son of McLean's Music, a little bit below average with first-time turf runners. The dam, though, has foaled 1 turf winner. Another horse with a little bit of tactical speed. I think this horse is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I would want to bet him necessarily trying turf for the first time, but I won't be surprised if he handles it. His dirt form is actually okay. If I'm being honest, I'm not a big fan of this horse on the main track. He did run pretty well last time going a mile, though. I mean, he was very wide, pressing the pace in that race, and he hung around pretty gamely to the end.
And in that race, he finished just behind the number 3, Just Right, who arguably has a bit more turf pedigree. Into Mischief, the stallion, 14% winners with first-time turf runners. The dam won twice on the turf. She has foaled a turf winner.
Yeah, there is pedigree with this horse. He's a pretty good dirt horse, too. I was a little surprised to see them enter him on turf for the first time here, Dan. He ran well last time. He and Cold Hard Cash out of the same race. But when you watch it, this horse had a great trip. Right in behind, the rail was wide open. He came through to the lead and just got beat, while Cold Hard Cash was hung out very wide in that race.
Nuts for Bolts, the number 4, is the kind of horse that needs a little pace and race luck, as he doesn't have a lot of early speed. Now, his 1 and only start this year, he just was sort of held up behind a slow pace in an open $25,000 heat and didn't do much running late. He has lots of seconds and thirds on his record. I think he needs a bit of a pace meltdown in this spot.
Yeah, he's going to need some racing up front, and then he's probably also going to need a couple of these horses just not really to show up with their best race, Dan. He's a pretty cool horse. I think he'll show up and run better this time than he did off the layoff, but I would be more inclined to use him underneath.
First start off a 5+ month layoff for the 5. Click Attack. This horse did some good things at Saratoga last year. His last race on dirt is a throw, and I think his most recent race on turf's a throw out as well. It was an open allowance horse, a good allowance group. The 4th horse coming back to run second with an 86 buyer. B, that was a very fast pace. And while this horse tripped out nicely along the rail, the horses that were in the top 4 in the early part of the race, they ended up completing the bottom half of the superfecta.
Yeah, exactly. That was a really strong pace in that race, and this horse just couldn't really cope with it. Prior to that, his prior three turf starts, Dan, they were all really good. You could see him getting better because he had been a little bit of a disappointment. Let's be honest. At the beginning of his career, he just kept settling for seconds and thirds. They dropped him in for 40. He finally got the win. He came back to win again. He ran great in that Belmont race back in October, where graded on a curve, came for him in the stretch. This horse would not relent to him. 93 buyers before. He ran great that day. If he runs another race like that, he's a handful in here.
And he's not pace dependent. He can be close to the pace. That big 93 buyer does stick out. The 6 is Good Old Boy, going out for trainer Michael Maker. This horse, the last time we saw him up in New York, was doing good work against New York breds. Maybe found the company against open horses down at Gulfstream a little bit too steep. 4th in his most recent start, but he got wired by a very sharp horse that day.
He did. He's a very consistent horse, and I also sort of respect his tactical speed, Dan. He's just the kind of horse that can get any kind of a trip in a race. You know, with Irad taking over again, it feels like he'll just be in the right spot here. I don't like this horse that much, and I just felt like he's going to be, you know, one of the shorter prices in here, so I would look elsewhere, but he could obviously win.
Pace factor, the 7, El Hermano, did good work on the turf early in his career, but then reeled off 2 straight when switched to dirt towards the end of 2019. Now, this is going to be his 3rd start off a very lengthy layoff, and I wouldn't doubt anyone who says, listen, ever since the long layoff, he hasn't shown much run at all.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't. He really hasn't shown anything in his 2 starts since they've come back with him off of the long layoff. So we'll see. Again, we'll see if he can still run. If he can still run, he has pretty good speed, and he does handle turf. So, I mean, there's a way to look at him and say at a big price, I want to take a shot with him. Personally, I want him to prove that he can still run.
Step Dancer, the number 8, was grade 2 placed behind Fire at Will in only his 2nd lifetime start. Fire at Will, of course, would win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf in 2020. He got a very nice trip and ride by Dylan Davis when he won the Awad 2 starts back, just saved ground every step of the way, got the hole in between, got the hole down on the rail, and Step Dancer did the rest. He didn't do much running in the Cutler Bay, but he also didn't break. He was running against better company, and he's getting Lasix for the first time. In against older horses. Again, I just think this is a nice spot for a horse with all the upside.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. We'll see what kind of price you can get on him in here. I don't care too much about his Cutler Bay off the layoff. It just felt like a race he was never going to win, especially from last. I could kind of go either way on him, Dan, depending on price. He did win 2 of his 3 starts last year. Personally, I thought he got perfect trips in both of them. So I'm not sure how good he actually is, but maybe this is just a good spot for him.
The rest of the field is entered main track only, so it's top pick time for the Thursday DRF race of the day. And we both agree, I just think a fairer pace scenario helps the 5 despite the layoff in a fast-paced race 2 back on dirt last time out, maybe a bit dirtied up.
Yeah, I look at him the same way, Dan. I liked where he was headed last year before I got into that really fast-paced race. I think this is a good spot for him to come back.
5-8, 1-6 for Mike, 5-6, 1-2 for me. And the Thursday race of the day, the 8th at beautiful Belmont Park. Best of luck.